Welcome to the next episode of KapVista Klips. Today I have the guys from Presto with me. They're calling in from the other side of the world. Both of them are in Italy and I'm sitting here in Sydney. So welcome, guys. Thank you for your early morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So let's jump into it. I really want to understand who you are, what your background is, and what led you to this point. So do you guys want to jump in, tell everybody who you are and what your background is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start to kick us off. My name is Francis Wenstrup. I'm Italian American, and I basically have all my experience in the financial sector. So worked 17 years in finance, 11 of which are directly in the fintech space. My career actually started working for an American institution, Bank of America, where for 6 years I basically managed retail operations. After 6 years with them, and this was around the 2008 crisis, I started to explore alternative finance. And here's where I landed with one of the pioneers in SME lending, a company called On Deck Capital. On Deck Capital basically focuses on alternative lending, but evaluating credit in a non-traditional way. What I mean by this is that you're not looking only at historical data, but also real-time data through the analysis of bank statements. And this is quite critical because you're actually able to identify trends and stress of a company before the company actually knows itself that it's entering into a distressed state. With them, I've held several roles. Basically, as a startup, juggled multiple roles, held multiple hats. And at the end of my 6 years with them, I was managing three teams, from the credit analyst team, the data entry team, the quality assurance team, a team scattered across 3 states and 2 countries. 6 years with On Deck and a nice IPO exit, I decided to enter the European market space, where typically these trends tend to come at a much later time. And I joined a French company called October, and they're quite similar, focus on SME lending and non-traditional methods, but their platform was more of a peer-to-peer lending platform for SMEs. So slight different model, but similar experience in lending. With them, my role was basically to expand operations into new markets. Entered 3 new markets while I was there. Italy, Netherlands, Germany, and Spain and France were already operational. So as part of the scaling initiative, also to streamline operations and to optimize the loan originations process. After 3 great years with them, I decided to join a local player in Italy called Credimi, and they focus always on SME lending. But their initial sort of launch was in invoice factoring. So my scope here was to redesign their core banking system and make it much more functional to extend credit. I was just with them for a short period, 1 year, before I started to notice a trend into the early wage access sector, where these were starting to become popular in the US and the UK market spaces. And then earlier last year, I also met with Dmitry, and we partnered up launching Presto and first to market in Italy. I'll leave the word to Dmitry, who could give his explanation on his background.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Francis. So my name is Dmitry. I'm Italo-Russian, born in St. Petersburg in Russia, but moved to Italy when I was 3 years old with my mother, which is important for why I actually decided to create this company. I have a little bit of a different background compared to Francis. I'm actually a scientist by training. I work in a lab in Paris studying psychotropes. With my team, we published a couple of papers. One of them ended up on Nature, studying which genes are causing the addictions. And but I didn't really like that as a sector. So I decided to study business and ended up by chance actually working in a venture capital industry. First in Zurich at Ver Ventures, where I was working with my partner on the French market, especially exploring the medtech and biotech industries and companies. After that, I was called in another VC fund in Paris called HCVC, which is a little bit more hard tech compared to the one that was in Zurich. And we were investing in that fund from pre-seed up to Series B all around the globe, like Silicon Valley, East Coast, Europe, Asia. I decided that I wanted to go back to Italy after 5 years abroad, and actually the way that me and Francis connected was through like an acquaintance, which is Enrico Pandian, who is a very successful entrepreneur here in Italy. He created several companies. One of them, Everly, raised more than 150 million. And I came to him as a business angel, basically looking for some funding. And he told me, like, the idea is great. You should meet with Francis. He has a very complementary background to you. And, and that's how our journey started.
Awesome. So tell us about the platform, what it is, and why you chose to create this.
Yeah, I'll start. So basically, the idea was to create this early wage access platform because we wanted to help a little bit more the underbanked people, the one that are financially struggle, especially at this time. And it comes a little bit from, as I mentioned before, from my personal background, because when I come to Italy with my mother, you can imagine, as an immigrant family in a new country, you don't become a doctor immediately. So, you do some low-level jobs. And during my childhood, we were struggling a little bit. So, it was a little bit as a purpose why I decided to create this company. So the idea when we started was to basically a little bit copy the similar companies such as Francis mentioned before, like in the US, in the UK, in Europe, which is basically partnering with companies and providing this solution for free for their employees. The reality is that all these companies from a technological point of view, they're quite similar. What they do is they do integrate with the payroll management system of the company, and they know all the data of their employees, and they can provide this access. In Italy, unfortunately, the majority of the company, they still use very antiquated softwares, such as in Italy, for example, we have one called Zucchetti, which is market leader, but it was created in the 70s. So you can imagine that, the connection via API is not something that's really feasible, let's put it this way. So in order to overcome this problem, what we did is we leveraged the PSD2, which is a legal framework, which basically it's known as open banking. So the idea was to bypass this payroll management system and during the registration, give the employee the possibility to connect their bank account to our platform. In this way, we knew exactly that he was working for a specific company, he has a specific salary, but I would say the most important part is that we saw all the transactions that he was doing on his account. We launched in May of the last year, and we brought 7 companies on board. But the cool part of what we noticed in the following months until October, November is that a lot of users were coming on our platform, and we were doing no marketing at all. And they were asking if the company was already partnered with us. Usually the majority of these users were working for the public sector. Yeah. And, doing a partnership as a startup with a public company, especially in Italy, it's nearly impossible. So we understood that since we don't really need to integrate with the payroll management system, we can provide this solution also to the B2C market. And the reality is that we understood that the real value of what we're doing is that with all this data that we have regarding our users, how they spend their money, we can create a new credit risk system, which we call behavioral credit engine. And we think that especially for the users that use our platform, it's much better because we have in real time a view on who they are, where they stand during that month from a financial point of view, and if they are eligible to use our platform. So the number increased so much. Right now we have around more than 500 users. And the most cool part is that also we understood that a lot of these users, they're not very like financial savvy, let's put it this way. So some of them gamble, some of them are already over leveraged, and with also the advent of this large language model, we are now developing a solution that helps them to better manage their finances via chatbot that allows them to give them like a personalized advices on how they should spend their money. So, for example, if someone has a salary of 1,000 euro and spend 300 euros on groceries, well, the average of that demographic is around 200. The chatbot tells them you should, in order to better manage your finances, you should spend a little bit less on groceries. So this is what we are actually developing at the current moment.
Yeah. Okay. That's quite interesting. So not only is it a financial management tool, but you're also collecting and building profiles and data on the financial user base, which could then grow into a new business model or a new channel, which is quite interesting because as you said, the systems in place currently are from the 70s. So there needs to be a bit of a revolution, if you will.
Exactly.
Perfect. So the company is a financial management tool, but also a data company, lending company. It's growing from there. What sort of milestones have you achieved in, say, the last 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, great question. So right now we have a little bit over 600 users. And of these users, basically 44% we've converted to active users who utilize the platform. So basically, almost 1 in 2 we've converted. When we look at the metrics for how many requests have come through, we have a little over 1,100 requests. Mm-hmm. Of these requests, we have a 70% approval rate, which may not seem so important, but when you factor in a default rate that's less than 5%, then those metrics do become very important. The reason why we're able to maintain such a low defect rate and a high conversion rate is, again, the fact that we have access to the open banking. So we're able to identify exactly when their salary hits their account, the amount, and we instantly debit the account. So we always place ourselves in first position to collect the funds as soon as they are received.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. So that's a good milestone. And you mentioned before that, those 600 users are inbound or majority inbound, with, a pretty, basic marketing campaign, you can increase those numbers quite significantly. And then if you were to put, obviously, I dare say with this raise that you'll be focusing on marketing, you can, and if you put in a good marketing campaign, those numbers can increase. And having a 70% approval rate it's very good numbers and can scale quite quickly.
Yes.
The size of the business.
If I may here, like at the current moment, for example, we have like on a daily basis between 3 and 4 people that register on our platform, and they do find us because since in Italy there's no kind of service like similar to ours. When they're looking for wage advancement, we are the third website that they can find. So like the majority of our users come from there. When we launched, even before we launched the product, we did a small campaign on Facebook just to understand what kind of user might be interested in this solution. And we spent around 300 euros. And we got on our wait list more than 200 users on this wait list with name, surname, phone number, email, and especially their working company. So for us, it was a way to understand where these users come from. And the cost of acquisition of the customer, like if I do recall properly, it was around €1.20, which, wow, as you can imagine, for a fintech company is extremely low. Yeah. So it showed us immediately that there is a huge demand for a solution like ours. Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. So you've reached some good milestones, especially at this early stage. You've proved the tech out. You've got customers and you're growing. So let's get into the interesting part. So how much are you raising? What's it being used for? And what's the momentum around the raise?
Yes, the idea is to raise around €500,000. The idea is to do a safe with a 4 million cap. This is because we already raised around 300K in the previous month from several investors, one institutional and one we created a syndicate with smaller investors, which allow us to basically hire our employee that we brought from the United States, and he was working for Apple and Google. So you can imagine that coming from these huge institutions, coming to Italy for a lower salary, but for a much more interesting project, it showed the potential of our solution.
Yeah.
The money that we are raising in the current moment, the majority of them, I would say more than a half, would be used in order to hire engineers, which would be on the statisticians and developers, mainly because our core focus for the next 12 months is to improve the product. So we need to make it much more efficient, much more reliable. We need to keep working on our behavioral credit engine to make it much more precise to decide basically if the users are, we can give them money or not.
Yeah. Awesome. And then in terms of the momentum to the raise, what's that look like?
Yeah, the idea is to get the commitment before July, by the end of July, because here in August, usually, the situation is calmer. So we want to get this save done by the end of July in order that we have much more, air for the Q4 of this year and by Q1 of the next year, with the idea to raise a much bigger round by Q2, Q3 of 2024.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, I won't go too much further than this because I think it gives us a great overview. I like your background. I think you come to the table with something different, but having a firm finger on the pulse in terms of what the market is dictating. Fintech is always a hot industry, and there's still more advancements to do in this space. I don't think we're even at the peak yet in terms of fintech, because there is so many people that are still, as you mentioned, unbanked or have limited capabilities. So the technology that and the demand for fintech is always going to be there. But thanks guys for jumping on. I really appreciate it. Anybody who's watching this, if you want to get in touch with the guys, please, I'll put their details down below, and reach out to me and I can make a direct introduction. But thank you very much for jumping on. It's great to chat, and have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks guys.